Hello out there, guys. How are you all doing? And welcome, of course, as always, back to Rule of Two Review. So today I've decided to revisit a topic that I first discussed several months ago, and it is surrounding the Nintendo Switch, of course. When I first discussed it many months ago, of course, as you can imagine if you follow that timeline, that was definitely before the Nintendo Switch released. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was before they even held their January 12th event in Tokyo, which we all know gave us a lot of the final details and insight and info as far as the controllers, the games, the Switch, the price, and all these good things. So when you compare that conversation at that time, now that we've not only had that event, but hell, the thing's been out for a month, there's kind of a whole different perspective that we can have on this idea. And of course, this idea, as you can no doubt tell from the title of this video, is whether or not the Switch has the ability to outsell or outperform the Nintendo Wii, which is a very lofty goal. And it's also a very interesting topic that I think has a little bit of relevance. In the grand scheme of things, you guys, I think that we need to kind of remember that this doesn't really matter because the Switch, without question, does not have to outsell the Wii to be seen as or considered a successful console. Not only just for Nintendo within their own business, but even just as far as consoles go within the entire video game industry. I definitely don't think that it's a requirement. So I don't think that we need to look at, the outselling or outperforming of the Wii as some sort of barometer to the Switch's success. That would be completely unfair, and it just really doesn't make sense. So I should also say that part of the reason I'm even revisiting this topic really quickly for you guys today is because the conversation has kind of restarted again on the internet over the last probably 2 weeks, I want to say. I've seen a couple of articles and also some videos on YouTube, some from people who I really know and also enjoy. And I was like, wow, this all of a sudden has become a topic post-release of the Switch. And what's really interesting when I consider my opinion and my sort of take and presentation of my idea in this video and comparing it to the previous video, what's interesting is, again, my previous opinion was based on the Nintendo Switch before it launched, before we knew the price, before we saw the games, before we saw how well it actually sold within its first month. And now, sharing my opinion again, there's definitely some more sort of nuance I can add to the idea of whether or not this is possible. So, in reminding you guys of my first opinion again that I shared several months ago, I definitely felt that there was almost no chance that the Switch will ever outsell the Wii, which sold well over 100 million units. Well, maybe not well over. I think it's somewhere in the range of like 110 to 120 million units or so, somewhere in that ballpark. Definitely over 100 million units. And, several months ago I was like, you guys, the Switch is going to be great, it's going to sell really well, but it's not going to sell as much as the Wii. Now, the Switch has launched over a month ago, and it's done fantastically well. We knew that Nintendo was only going to have 2 million units available for the worldwide launch, and we all thought that that was going to be not enough, and that turned out to be true because it has absolutely sold through all 2 million of that stock, and it's continuing to sell more, and everyone's hard-pressed to find them that doesn't already have one. Every time they become available on Amazon or Best Buy or GameStop, everyone knows about it, and then everyone runs out and rushes to the stores and picks them up, so they're still proving to be scarce, and they're selling like hotcakes, which is freaking awesome. I love seeing that. It feels so good to see Nintendo being so successful again after the unfortunate life that was the Wii U, which of course I did love and still do love the Wii U, but it didn't do this. And it reminds me of 2006 and 7 and 8. I remember even working in retail at the time when Wiis were impossible to find and impossible to keep in stock, and people were running each other over to try to find them. And it's really cool to see that happening again with the Switch. So when I consider that, I will tell you guys, my opinion on whether or not the Switch could potentially outsell the Wii is still, surprisingly, close to the same. At the end of the day, I really still don't think that it's that likely that the Switch could outsell the Wii, you guys. And I know that that's going to be crazy and everyone's going to think that I'm nuts because everyone who's a Nintendo and a Switch fan is just like, oh, it's obviously going to happen, or of course there's a really good chance that the Switch could outsell the Wii. And I get that, and I love that passion, and of course I certainly share that. But if I was going to be realistic, I would say there's really not that big of a chance because the Wii was such an unprecedented scenario. And it was doing something even newer than what the Switch is doing, to be fair, because we've had really high-quality portable and touchscreen gaming before. The Switch is hands down the coolest and most unique and best version of that, and combining that with the home console aspect is definitely new, like the Wii was new. But I think the Wii had an even newer feeling to it. And maybe I can say that because I was 26 when the Wii launched, so I had a very adult perspective, and I have a very, clear recollection and memory of that time. And maybe some of the younger guys out there who are seeing the Switch, maybe you were really young when the Wii came out. Maybe you were, 8, 9, 10, 14 or 15 years old when the Wii came out, and now you're over 21 years old if you do the math, and it's like, okay, your memory of maybe being a young preteen isn't necessarily the same as someone like myself who was in his mid-20s at that time. And so I can tell you that the world's reaction to what the Wii was felt so fresh. And with the Switch, it's new, but not in the same way. That being said, I do think it's fair to still amend my overall feelings, because several months ago, I felt that there was like a 99% chance that the Switch had no chance in hell of outselling the Wii. And now that we've seen how popular it is, and we see people picking up on it, and we've seen how well it's sold in the first month, and for myself, when I consider that, Nintendo, I think, really does have a fairly regular slate of games releasing throughout 2017, and if that also happens in 2018, it's like, wow, the Switch really could sell better than I was expecting. And so I will say that you know what? There is still a chance that the Switch could outsell the Wii. I still absolutely would put money into the bet of I don't think it's going to happen, but there's definitely a bigger chance of it happening than I first imagined. Previously, I was like 99% sure it wouldn't happen. Now, I'm probably more of like 20 to 30% sure that it could happen. And that's a pretty significant difference, you guys. It really goes to show I personally feel the power of how well the Switch is selling right now and how well the world is reacting to it. And I think if Nintendo keeps the momentum up and they nail it with E3, I've said this many times, even in the days following the Wii's launch, I made a video discussing what they needed to do to keep the momentum of the sales up, and one of the biggest things absolutely is nail E3. So if they do nail E3, and we see these games continue to come out, and Xenoblade doesn't get delayed, and Mario doesn't get delayed, and these games hit this holiday, it's absolutely going to keep selling, and I really do think that the Switch has a better chance of selling around Wii numbers than I would have thought before, and that's pretty awesome. It should be noted, you guys, even though I still ultimately feel if I had to come down on one side or another that the Switch won't outsell the Wii, I do love to see the fact that it is possible, and I want to see this happen. I could sit here and tell you all day long, maybe I'm 100% sure that the Switch won't outsell the Wii. Of course, it's obvious. And even if I felt that way, which I don't, I still do want it to happen. I want to be wrong. Even sitting here, feeling 60 to 70% sure that it won't happen, I still want it to happen, and I still want to be wrong. I'd love the Switch to sell 200 million units. I mean, bring it on, man. The more success Nintendo sees, the better. And I think the Switch is so flippin' fantastic. I want to see the thing sell as well as it possibly could. It could only really be a good thing. But in wrapping this up, I'm going to bring this whole topic and conversation back down to reality a little bit. And when we start to really consider the possibility of this, like I was alluding to at the beginning of the video, not only do I ultimately feel that this really won't happen, it doesn't need to. I really want to remind everyone of the fact that, honestly, the Switch doesn't need to sell 120 million units to be incredibly successful, to be seen as a hit within Nintendo's own business, and to make Nintendo probably a lot of money. Back in the day, again, months ago, when I say back in the day, I mean a couple months ago, back in the day, I felt that the Switch is going to sell maybe 30, 40 million units, and that's going to be a really big hit because that's going to more than double the Wii U, and that will definitely be profitable and successful for Nintendo. And that is still true. However, I'm starting to feel more and more like the Switch's likely lifetime numbers could be as high as 60 to 70, maybe 80 million, depending on how long the life of the console is. You guys have to remember, Nintendo might be thinking of really upgrading the Switch or turning their business model into something else within only 4 or 5 years, well before there's even the opportunity for the Switch to sell as high as 100 million units. And that's part of what I factor into my sort of feelings and guesses and theories here as well. Which is a reminder, guys, I'm only guessing and theorizing. I'm never trying to state anything as fact, and I'm never trying to be the Nostradamus, as I like to say. I'm really just kind of guessing as a fan. But, we have to remember that the Switch is probably going to sell well enough to be a huge hit. I think on the low end, the lowest of the low end, the Switch is going to hit around 30 million units, which is freaking awesome, you guys. And that's its low end. On the high end, I'm sticking to around 70, maybe 80 million max. And that's just a random number thrown out based on how long the Switch is going to be available. If Nintendo can keep the games up, if the third-party thing proves to be very successful, that's going to get more people on board. If the third-party thing ultimately falls flat like it has several generations in a row, several generations in a row, that is going to hold the sales back. And so maybe it just falls around 50 or 60 million. But you guys, that's incredible coming off of a Wii U console that only sold 14 million units in 4.5 years. I mean, look at the difference here. And let's just temper our expectations and look at this through the lens of reality and say, you know, we don't have to expect 120 million Switches to be sold for this thing to be a crazy huge success. So that's what I'm expecting. I'm gonna remind you guys at the end here, I'm 60 to 70% sure that the Switch will not outsell the Wii, but that's a huge jump from how I used to feel before, where I thought it was almost a guarantee that it won't happen. So it's going to be a lot of fun, very interesting to see it play out. Come 2020 and 2021, how many Switches will we see being sold to people? It's going to be a lot of fun to see. So tell me what you guys think. Do you think that there really is this slam dunk chance that the Switch is going to definitely outsell the Wii's insane numbers? Or was that really too much of a lightning in a bottle scenario like I think for Nintendo to recapture, even with a fantastic Switch and its awesome success so far? Do you feel like it's probably not going to sell as many? And if so, I want to hear from everybody. How many lifetime sales do you actually think the Switch is going to sell? That is actually going to be really interesting and kind of fun to see what kind of numbers we see down in the comments. So that's it for today, guys. I thought this would be a fun topic to revisit as well. Tell me what you guys think about the Nintendo Switch sales compared to the Nintendo Wii. Thanks as always for tuning in. This, of course, is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I will catch you all next time on another video.